What's going on, guys? Tyler with Medina Media here, and today I'm going to show you how I edit photos inside of Lightroom. This is the exact workflow that I use for weddings, for brand shoots, for portraits. There's no trendy filters, no gimmicks, just clean cinematic color that lasts. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started. Alright guys, so I'm in my studio right now. I'm at my workstation. I'm getting ready to show you a raw photo that I took last week. This is nothing fancy. It's literally on the top of a parking garage in downtown Lexington, Kentucky. This is my raw workflow. This is how I would approach this photo from start to finish. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started. Alright, so this is the raw image straight out of camera. No contrast, no color, no magic. This is what your camera actually captures. And again, I always tell people that editing is not about creating something fake. It's about enhancing what's already there. And so the goal should always be to get your image as perfect as possible inside the camera. So cropping later is going to take away quality. Heavy fixing later is going to cost you detail. And so you want the right exposure, the right framing, the right light when you press the shutter. And so this image here, I really like this image. I like how it came out. This is the raw file straight out of the box. And so this is what I saw in my camera, and this is what I'm editing now. And so later on, if I start to crop details, what it's going to do, and I get it, there's a time that you might have to crop something out of the camera, but also now with AI and everything else, you can easily begin to remove subjects out of the camera. Whenever I begin to crop, I'm going to lose photo quality, and so I'm going to forfeit quality whenever I begin to crop. And so it's so important that I get this right in camera. Again, with that is getting your lighting right, because you can only recover so much shadows before you begin to forfeit details and you begin to create noise into a picture. And so when you're using lenses that cost this much money, like the RF 135 1.8, and you're using, in this case I used my R6 Mark III, which this is one of the first shoots that I've been able to actually take this camera out and shoot it. And so you want to maximize the quality that you can begin to create on a photo, and part of that's going to be good lighting. And so this photo is a little bit underexposed for what I would want it to be. However, part of that was intentional. And so like the shadow that's on the right side of his face here that you see, part of that's intentional in kind of creating more of a dramatic look when it comes to this photo. And honestly, overall, I'm really pleased with this photo. This is straight out of the box, and I think it looks great. I like the shadows that are on his face, the dramatic look it's creating there. I like the reflection that's out of the key light in his eyeglasses here, and you can see that, and some people might not like that, but I like the way that the light reflects on his glasses there. I like the way the rim light's set up, and so I used a Godox 8400 Pro here on the front as a key light, and then I used an 8200 as a rim light on this picture. And so once you begin to get into flash photography, off-camera flash, it's going to be a game changer for your portraits. I'm telling you, outdoor portraits, indoor portraits, beginning to understand light. And as photographers, we don't always have the best situations and the best settings. And so again, as I said in the beginning of this video, this photo was literally taking on a parking garage in downtown Lexington, Kentucky, which just goes to show, as creatives, we got to be able to take a photo anywhere and make the best of what we have. Sometimes we don't always have the ideal location, and so it's important that we begin to get creative and learn how to use our surroundings to our advantage, and learn to be able to use the environment to be able to learn how to be put in any situation and still be able to create good photos. And that's what's really cool and really challenging for us as creators, is that you get to be able to play around with your craft, and really it's in the eye of the beholder. And how do I create good composition? How do I create good photos with what I have in front of me? And so I really like this photo. I like the way that it's framed. I like the way the lighting is on it. And again, we're just going to do slight boost, because you shouldn't be having to recreate your entire image. We should be able to do light enhances to just really boost and really enhance what we already have there, rather than completely recreating an image from front to start. And so that's what's going to be the most important, is getting your image right in camera. All right, so as I stated earlier, this image here was shot with a rim light and a key light using off-camera flash, and so I shot it on my R6 Mark III, which I'm loving this camera so far. It's incredible, and honestly, maybe one of the best cameras Canon ever made. I also have an R5 Mark II. If you haven't seen my what's in my camera bag for 2026, I encourage you to go watch that video where I kind of go over some of the gear that I'm using here on a daily basis. And I just picked up the RF 15 to 35, which I'm currently filming on at the point of this video. And if you guys want to see a full-length review of the RF 135 1.8, just go ahead and let me know down below. I'm telling you though, I love this lens. And so when you get into the 85 and kind of up from there, 135, 105, you get into 200 millimeter. I just really love those focal lengths for portraits. They tend to shoot a little bit flatter. And before I got the RF 135, I was using the 85 for a lot of portraits. I'm still using a 50. I'm using a 35 when it's applicable. You can get incredible shots out of any of those lenses. Obviously, the 35 millimeter has gotten more award-winning photos than any other focal length in the history. However, again, back then and back in the day, there wasn't a lot of these larger focal lengths that we're starting to introduce now. You didn't have a 28 to 70. You didn't have 70 to 200. You didn't have a 135. And so there's some lenses now that are being introduced that are just revolutionary. The more you get out there in focal length, like I said, to 85, 100, 135 and plus, you're going to shoot more flat. As to where you shoot with a 35, it's going to kind of get more of a rounded image, or at least start to get more round, and the wider you get, you're going to kind of get more of that. So the 50 millimeter and 35 are pretty natural to what your eye sees, but when you get into 135, like I said, it's just going to shoot super flat. And I love this lens for portraits, and when you're shooting at 1.8 aperture, I mean, the bokeh on this lens is just beautiful. So I really like this lens. If you want to see a full length review, like I said, go ahead and comment down below, and that's something we can try to incorporate into the future. And so again, this is just street photography. I like street photography. It's not something I can do all the time, but I like it because you don't always need the perfect location. It's all about how you frame the shot. I can't stress this enough. You can turn ordinary, even ugly spaces into something cinematic if you understand light, angles, and composition, and that's what we have here. We're on top of a parking garage, nothing fancy. And so let's go ahead and shape what we captured. And so the first thing that I'm going to do when I look at a shot like this is I'm going to adjust the exposure on it. Again, you want to try to get it as right as possible in camera. We're not going overboard because we don't want to lose detail altogether. And so when I adjust exposure, I'm going to go like plus 0.2 to plus 0.6, kind of in that realm there. And so on this particular photo, I'm just going to raise it slightly. I feel like 0.30 is pretty good on this photo. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin to create a little bit of contrast. And so I don't want to go overboard because you can see what it kind of does to the image. If I go too much or if I go too little, it's going to wash out all the detail altogether. And so I'm going to add a little bit of detail to this image. And again, not going overboard with contrast. Honestly, maybe 0.3, or I'm sorry, plus 3. That looks pretty good. The next thing I want to do is try to reduce the highlights in this image. And so if the color and the lighting on the face is ever too much, you don't want to adjust exposure, you want to adjust highlights. And so I'll just show you what it looks like when you reduce the exposure. It's going to completely take away all the color and all the detail in your image altogether. And so let's go ahead and bring this back up to plus 30. And then what I'm going to do is show you the difference with doing that versus taking away the highlights. So you can kind of see the difference. You're still recovering detail. Obviously, that's a little bit of a drastic drop on highlights. What I'm going to do on this particular photo is I'm probably going to drop it to about -20. It's going to take away some of the reflection that you see in his glasses, even though I kind of like some of that in there. I don't want all of it in there, and so I'm going to reduce some of that. It's going to take away some of the glare that was on his face. But again, I like the shadow that's here on the right side of his face, and so when you get into off-camera flash, it's going to be a game changer. We can understand key lights, beginning to understand rim lights, what that begins to do, understanding Rembrandt lighting, understanding loop lighting, butterfly lighting. In this particular case, we're short lighting this. I have the off-camera flash, Godox 8400 Pro, and I have it off to the left of his face, and basically he's looking towards the flash, not directly at the flash, but he's kind of looking off to the side of the flash. And what it's doing is it's called short lighting, and it's lighting basically the chin and this whole side of his face here, creating this natural shadow there, which just kind of creates more drama to the picture. And I really like that look in this particular setting. So again, off-camera flashes. All right, so next we're going to raise the shadows on here. And so boosting the shadows, I might lift plus 20 to plus 60. Again, that's on the extreme end. I try to do as minimal as possible here because I don't want to begin to lose the detail in a shirt, lose the detail in the shadows, and that's essentially what you do. And so it's necessary sometimes. I'm going to use it just to give a little boost, but I want to completely recreate this image. And so in this particular case, I'm probably going to go, let's say maybe plus 10 to plus 15, just to kind of boost it a little bit there and raise it up a little bit. Then I'm going to go on the whites. I'm going to go plus 5 to plus 25, just depending on the picture. And so what this is going to do is it's going to add just a nice wash to his face, boosting the whites in the image here. So let's go ahead and go plus 20 on whites. All right. The next thing I want to look at is the temperature of this photo. And so just depending on what you're going for scene-wise, do I want it a little bit cooler? Do I want it a little bit warmer? In this particular photo, I want it with the gold chain, kind of the richness of it, the gold in his glasses, the gold earrings that he's got here. We're slightly above golden hour here in this photo, so the sun's kind of gone, it's starting to go down already. So I kind of missed golden hour on this shot, but what I'm going to do is I'd like to make this photo a little bit more warm, and so I'm going to go ahead at the temperature on this photo, if you can see on the right side of my screen, and I'm just going to begin to raise it until it begins to, until it gets to a place where I like the way it looks. I'm not trying to create an image that looks unnatural, right? So I want to try to get as warm without actually making it look fake or unnatural. So that's what I'm going for. So if it looks fake, if it looks unnatural, you've gone too much, and I can kind of show you what that looks like. So here, obviously, everything washed out yellow. So that's not what we want to do. So we're going to back it up and right to about 7649. So I kind of like where that's at now. And then if it begins to get too green in your image, what you can do is you can adjust the tint. And so if you're too green, you want to add a little bit more magenta in here. And so adding that little magenta is going to begin to pull reds out of the skin tone. And so kind of pull that red out of the natural pigment of your skin. And so I might boost that. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and boost it, let's see, +5, just to kind of pull some magentas out. And so it was looking a little bit green in that image. And then you can adjust the vibrance and the saturation. And so both of these, I would say saturation maybe -5 to +5, vibrance probably -10 to +10, in that realm. And so your saturation, you can see going negative is obviously taking away how saturated the image is, how saturated the colors are. And so if I go all the way, you're going to take color out completely. If I go all the way up, it's going to completely saturate this image with color. And so what I'd like to do in this particular situation is, again, -5 to +5, not adding too much, again, just enhancing. And so adding +5 on this image, I think looks good. I think it just helps saturate a little bit of the color that's in his skin there. What we're going to do is let's look at vibrance, and let's look at boosting the vibrance to, let's see, about +10 on this particular image. Okay, so I like how the image is starting to come together already. So I like kind of that more vibrance, that more gold in this picture here. I'm also going to lower blacks a little bit, try to pull some of that darker in his shirt there. And so let's go -2. Again, not drastic, just want to do it a little bit. And I may raise the shadows just a little bit more on this image. So let's go ahead and go to +20 on the shadows. Okay. Alright, so I like where that image is sitting, and then you can go to the color mixer here and begin to adjust on the color mix. And so adding presence and kind of helping with global color and skin tones. And so orange kind of controls skin tones. And so what you can do in a situation like this is go to your hue, and you can minus that -5, +5, and I'll just show you what that kind of looks like. I don't think it's necessarily needed for this particular image, but you can see kind of how that controls and adds to the image. And so let's go back down to 0, and honestly, I actually may take this one -5 on our oranges here, just to kind of take that out and make it look a little bit better on the skin. Luminance, you can go +5 to +20 in that realm and see what that looks like. All right, and then your saturation on the orange, I would go probably -5 to -20, somewhere in that realm. And so let's just go ahead and see what that looks like. Yeah, let's go ahead and just do -2 on this one. All right, and then your reds, you can saturate -5 to +25, and I feel like that's pretty good to get natural glowing skin. So let's go ahead on the saturation to -5 to -25. So you can kind of see what that does, adding it to and taking it away. So again, let's go ahead and let's do -5. All right. And then what we can do is the greens. And so greens get ugly fast. And so let's go ahead and just try the greens here. Let's go ahead and get, let's do +10 to +30 on hue and see what that looks like. All right, I'm going to go +10. And then saturation -10 to -40. And then we'll go luminance +5 to +25 in that realm. So let's just call it +10. All right. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sharpen the image. And so we're going to go go down to sharpening here. Let's do plus 40 to plus 70 in that realm. So let's go ahead, let's just go plus 60. And then let's do the radius 0.7 to 0.2. So let's go up to 1.2 rather. For the radius, let's go 0.7 to 1.2. So it's already naturally at 1.0. Let's just go ahead and boost that to 1.2. This is only sharpening the edges. And then on the detail, let's go ahead and go 15 to 30. So again, this is naturally at 25. Let's go ahead and boost that to 30. And then our masking, we're going to do 60 to 90. So after we boost this to 30, masking, we're going to go 60 to 90. Let's just go on the lower end at 60. And again, this is going to help with just kind of creating more sharper on the edges here. So you can see how our image is already starting to come together. And then just to add a little bit more presence without destroying the skin, what I may do on this image is go to the texture here in effects, and let's just add plus 5 to plus 15 on your texture. That's a little too much there. Let's go ahead and just do plus 5. Let's go to clarity plus 3 to 10, kind of in that realm. Let's do 5. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mask. And so again, I told you earlier that I missed out a little bit on the golden hour, and so this photo is a little bit past golden hour, but there are still some things that we can recover there in the sky area. And I tried to do a mask on the sky in this particular instance. Let me see if I can show this to you. I tried to do a mask on the sky, and if you can see right here, it's pulling the red up top, but it's actually missing out on this part of the sky. So in a case like this, if that happens, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another mask, and I'm going to do background on this one. And in this case, it pulled the entire background. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to do the exposure. I'm going to drop the exposure down in the background, -30 to -60, kind of in that realm. And this is what's going to help with that golden hour, kind of really pulling out the detail in the sunset that you're looking for. So in this case, like, I feel like that's a little too much, and so I might back this down, because again, I'm not wanting to create it unnatural, but just give a nice even contrast between him and the background that's here. So let's go ahead and go -55, -56 on this one. That's, oh, let's go back here, -56, -60. We'll leave it there. I'm also going to drop the highlights down. So I'm going to drop the highlights down -20 to -60 on here. So let's go ahead and just drop this down -30 and see how that looks. I feel like that looks pretty good. Then I'm going to drop the whites down as well. So let's go -10 to -25 on the whites. In this particular photo, I'm going to go -10. Oh, there we go. Alright, so I'm really liking how this photo is starting to come together now, and you can see it kind of piece by piece starting to pull together. And so I really like it. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to actually raise the temperature on this photo. So again, we're on this mask on the background, and so to kind of pull out some of those gold, especially if you have a nice sunset, what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise this +10 on the temperature to kind of pull out those golds, and then I'm going to add to the saturation +10 as well, and just kind of get that rich color in the background. Which really works well in golden hour kind of time frame there. So I'm already really liking how this is coming out. And so this is without presets. This is just editing a raw photo from scratch. I do have presets that I save, presets that I make throughout photo shoots, especially depending on certain lighting situations. And so in a particular case like this, if I'm working on this photo and I like the color and the color is pretty consistent from photo to photo, I may create this and name it according to that shoot, and I may use it just as a good starting point on all the other photos, but it's not going to copy the mask over. So it'll copy the generality of what you did on the global photo, but it's not going to copy your mask. You are going to have to repeat that throughout the photos, but at least you're going to get a good starting point. And so this is, again, kind of showing you workflow from beginning to end without having presets, creating and helping boost your photo from scratch. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do in this photo is I'm going to add texture to this background mask. And so we'll actually take away, I'm going to go to about -10 on the texture. I'm going to go -10 on clarity. Let's see here. -10 on clarity. And then I'm going to sometimes boost the dehaze, minus dehaze, just depends on the photo. In this particular one, I'm going to leave it where it's at. But if I wanted to add a little bit more definition to the clouds, I may add to the dehaze on here and just boost it about 10 or minus a 10, somewhere in that range. So either minus 10, plus 10, but again, I like how this photo is coming out. Now, if you had a good sunset and you wanted to kind of add and illuminate that sunset, what you can do is create another mask, go to like a radial gradient, and then what we're going to do is we're going to come over to your sunset here. You're going to click and you're going to drag into make basically a circle here. And it's okay if it goes a little bit on his head. That's the nice thing about shooting with flash photography and giving a nice rim light, is you're already creating a natural glow on the back of his head to help separate him from the background. And then this radial gradient, again, you're just going to go to your light source. So wherever your sun's at in the photo, whatever your light source in the photo, if you really want to just kind of help make it pop a little bit more, you're going to find that light source and you're going to add this radial gradient. And then we're going to go over to the exposure, and we're going to do the opposite of what we just did with the sky. So instead of lowering the exposure, we're actually going to raise the exposure somewhere between 0.020 and 0.60. And so for this photo, I think 0.20 is fine. Again, I'm not trying to make it look unnatural. I'm just trying to add to it to help make it pop a little bit. And then we're going to go down to highlights. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to raise highlights between plus 10 and plus 25. And you can kind of see here, as the more you go, you're not trying to blow it out, you're just trying to increase the highlights. I think plus 15 is fine. And I'm going to drop down to the temperature, and I'm going to go ahead and raise the temperature to plus 10. Again, what this is going to do is just going to help kind of pull out that golden sunset and accentuate the sunset here. After we finish doing the tint, what we're going to do is, the temperature, what we're going to do is we're going to go down to your effects, and we're going to hit clarity, and we're going to reduce the clarity down between -15 and -35. And I'm just going to go all the way down just to kind of show you what clarity does here. All right, so this is going to help just kind of give more texture to the sunset. So I'm going to go -15. And then the last thing I'm going to do on this radial gradient is I'm going to drop your dehaze. And so I'm going to go between -5 to -15 on the dehaze here, and you're going to kind of see what that does. On the extreme end here, extreme adding to, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, let's do -10 on the dehaze. All right, so again, nothing extreme, just enough to kind of help make it pop a little bit more and help distinguish your photo. I'm going to go here, I'm going to turn off the mask so you can see what it looked like before, and then turn it back on so you can see what it looks like after. So nothing drastic, again, minor shifts, minor tweaks to just help separate your photo, help add to, and just the overall image, help it really come together. All right, guys, so that's essentially it. That's how we take a photo from raw to wow. This is the exact workflow that I use and how I approach every photo shoot. Yes, I have presets that are saved, and presets are a great thing. They're a great starting point. However, every preset is not going to just automatically fit the photo shoot and the scene that you're shooting. And so I would approach it with individuality of how do we pull out the most dynamic range, the most color, the most cinematic styling out of that particular shoot. And then what I would do is once I find a color range that I really like for that particular photo, again, starting with minute changes, minute shifts, just like we showed you in this video, what I would then do is I would save that color profile. And so for instance, in this case, the model's name is Jafet. What I would do is I would save the preset as Jafet scene 1, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply it across all the photos that are in that scene. Again, it's not going to take things with it like masking, but what it is going to do is it's going to give you the ability to bring consistency across all the photos in that particular scene that you're shooting, so that when I deliver these files to the client, there's consistency all the way throughout. And so if you get a color that you really like and you want to keep that consistency, go ahead and save that preset in Lightroom and apply it to that scene, and go ahead and label it so you know exactly what you're looking for. But again, this is going to give you a good starting point for how you begin to take photos from raw to wow, and what's really going to help set you apart from other photographers. All right, guys, so what I want to do now is I want to pull up a side-by-side comparison of the finished product versus the raw photo that we started with and see how our edits turned out. Let's go ahead and get started. Finished product here of our before and after. So I really like how this came out. You know, you can see here, obviously, I think it was a really good image out of the box. Our before here, there's a lot of clarity in this image. However, what we did was we recovered a lot of the details. In his face and his skin, even in his hair here. We boosted the sky and the background behind him, and it just kind of just creates more of a dramatic image that I really like the overall image of how this came out. So, all right, guys, that pretty much sums up this video. Listen, if you like content like this and you want to see more of it, do me a favor, go ahead and smash that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on upcoming videos. This is a new channel. I just started about a month ago, so I appreciate all the love and support. Do me a favor, let me know what kind of videos you'd like to see on the next one. Maybe more gear reviews, maybe more in-depth, maybe behind the scenes. But go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and we'll see you on the next one.